Hey guys, it's Eli here from Eli's Reviews for Kids. Alright, today I'm going to be doing something a little different. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a big theory collection, Slappy's History slash Theory. I'm basically going to just go through Slappy's history, while also throwing in some theories, some my own, some other people's theories, and just kind of connect the dots of Slappy, because Slappy's a pretty hard saga in the sense that when you pick up one book, it seems to contradict another book that you've read or have nothing to do with the other book you've read. But I've created maybe a couple of different possibilities. I think either R.L. Stine just means for each of his books to be individual books, or R.L. Stine has made it tricky for us so that we have to really work really hard and decide what books fit in with what books and connect all the dots basically, because I honestly think that all the books are in the same universe. They are all connected. We just have to figure out how they are. So hopefully today, throwing in some of my own theories and other people's theories, I can finally connect those dots for you and explain the entire Slappy saga. As revealed in Bride of the Living Dummy, Slappy was carved out of a coffin wood by an ancient sorcerer. The sorcerer died and left his spirit in the dummy. That was what was revealed in the Goosebumps 2000 book, Bride of the Living Dummy. Now, the first time we actually see Slappy, though, in chronological book order, is in Night of the Living Dummy, which is this book. I've already reviewed it. You can see my other post. It is not revealed how Slappy ended up in a dumpster at the street at this book. It's not revealed how he's in the dumpster in the first place. It can be assumed that the previous owner knew of his evil and threw him out, but we don't know. All we know is that somehow he ended up with this girl named Lindy. During the time with her, another evil dummy arrives, Mr. Wood. Not much is known of Mr. Wood either, but the main antagonist in this book is Mr. Wood. Mr. Wood comes to life and wreaks havoc for both of the twin girls and completely destroys their life. And so, in the very end, in the climax of the book, Mr. Wood is crushed by a steamroller, and the girls finally think they have peace. They walk back to their room, and that's when Slappy, Lindy's dummy, starts talking and says and reveals his plans. He says he's going to enslave the girls, much like Mr. Wood was going to do as well. And so this sets the stage for all the other Slappy books where Slappy is going to be the main character. But for this Night of the Living Dummy book, it focuses more on Mr. Wood. But Mr. Wood is destroyed, and now Slappy has supposedly taken over the twins and is going to be basically use them as his own personal slaves for his evil. And that's where that book ends, so it really leaves a lot of stuff up in the air. Now, I'm just going to leave that book up there just for the time being. But when that book ends, well, Night of the Living Dummy 2 pops up from the original series. And in Night of the Living Dummy 2, well, it's a whole new owner, and that sets the stage for each book has its own characters. Now, this is where it gets tricky. It doesn't really explain how he gets to each owner, but the probability of it is that Lindy and Chris probably just convinced their parents to sell Slappy. They probably just convinced their parents just to get rid of him and said they didn't want him anymore. So thus, he ends up in a pawn shop, which is where we find him in The Night of the Living Dummy 2. He's bought by Amy's dad, and Amy takes him in and realizes how evil he is. Blah, blah, blah. Same thing happens. He starts wreaking havoc and trying to enslave her. But in the end, another dummy, Dennis, who we don't know much about him either, just that it was her old dummy before she got Slappy, he comes to life and breaks Slappy's head in two, which is kind of creepy. It kind of leaves things up in the air. However, it doesn't appear that Dennis wants to enslave everyone. He actually is maybe one of the nice dummies in the whole saga, and because he actually was seemingly protecting his family, supposedly. I mean, he's a doll, so he doesn't really have a family, but he was protecting the people that had taken care of him. And he destroyed Slappy. Slappy's head was broken in two. Now, that's where that book ends. Slappy's head is broken. Well, what happens to Slappy? Well, in the same Goosebumps series, Night of the Living Dummy 3 happens. This time, Slappy is found and repaired by Trina and Dan's father. Now, this is where it ties in everything, because in this book, it's mentioned that Slappy's head was broken and that Trina's dad had to repair it. So, what probably happened is Amy's dad just threw Slappy away once they realized how evil he was. Well, Trina's dad picks up the dummy and decides to repair it and add it to his collection. Because in this book, Trina's dad is a ventriloquist dummy collector. He collects all kinds of different dolls and has this own personal dummy museum in his attic, basically. Well, a lot of the different dummies are coming to life and framing Trina. And so Trina and her brother have to get down to the bottom of it and defeat, ultimately, the dummies. And it turns out that Trina's cousin Zane, who was staying with them, he was the one making it look like the dummies were alive. He apologizes. But after that, strange stuff still happens, and it's revealed that Slappy is alive. The other dummies turn against Slappy when he's about to attack the kids, and they attack Slappy. And at the end, Trina, just eager to get rid of Slappy, basically gives him to a gift to her cousin. She just gives her cousin Slappy because Zane doesn't know that Slappy's evil. And so it is probable that Zane became Slappy's slave for a time, but we don't really know much other than the fact that she gave him to him. We don't really know how he gets rid of him or anything about him, but it is probable that Slappy caused a lot of trouble for him as well. Okay, now on to Bride of the Living Dummy. Bride of the Living Dummy was the first Slappy book that was not in the original Goosebumps series. It was the second book in the Goosebumps series 2000. Bride of the Living Dummy is basically a girl. She takes her two twin sisters to a ventriloquist show, and it is revealed that a young performer, Jimmy O. James, is using Slappy. Now, this is where it gets tricky. It seems to contradict some other things. How does Jimmy O. James all of a sudden have this dummy? It doesn't really make sense. So, it is not really revealed how he got Slappy. So, what I'm guessing is Zane might have given Slappy to him, eager to get rid of him. And in the beginning of this film, after Slappy misbehaves for Jimmy and ruins his show, Jimmy throws Slappy away. Jillian's, which is the girl's friend, he brings the dummy. Okay, Jillian's friend, which is the main girl, her friend brings the dummy. He finds him in the dumpster, and he brings him to Jillian's dad in hopes that the dad can fix Slappy. But during his stay at Jillian's house, Slappy wreaks all kinds of havoc and, once again, tries to enslave all the residents of that household. And he keeps asking for his bride, which is really weird. And it turns out his bride is a doll that the twins have called Mary Ellen. At a party, it turns out that Mary Ellen was actually the mastermind behind everything and was actually controlling even Slappy. Slappy is angry that she's been controlling him, and so he pushes Mary Ellen into a buzzsaw blade. She grabs Slappy as well, and he dies and is chopped up into a million pieces. However, it is revealed that the sorcerer leaves the dummy and possesses Jillian. Because if you'll remember, there's nothing necessarily evil about the dummy. It is revealed that the sorcerer is the one that has possessed the dummy. So the sorcerer is the one basically controlling the dummy. The sorcerer leaves Slappy after he is destroyed, though, and he decides to possess Jillian, which is the main girl in the series. So it ends with Jillian being possessed by the dummy, which leaves a lot in the air, obviously. Now, this is where it gets really tricky, because in this next book, it seems to completely contradict a lot of the stuff that has happened before. Slappy's Nightmare. Here we have Slappy's Nightmare. Slappy is once again back with Jimmy, which means a couple of different things. A, in chronological order, this book happens before Bride of the Living Dummy, or B, Slappy is found and repaired again by Jimmy, and Jimmy decides to give him another chance. It's not really known in the book, it's just whichever your preference is. I like to think that this book might be out of chronological order, because that would make the most sense, but it's whatever you think. Anyways, the spirit must have returned to the dummy if this book is out of chronological order, due to the fact that the dummy is, again, possessed and is doing evil things. Slappy is insulting Jimmy's audience, making Jimmy angry. Jimmy gets a new dummy, Wally, who is made out of the same coffin as Slappy, which basically makes him Slappy's twin. Again, a newer book is going to throw this for a loop, but I'll make sense of it in a minute. Okay, a theory about Wally is this. Now, this isn't my theory, this is other people's theory. A lot of people think that Wally is Mr. Wood, which Mr. Wood was the dummy, the main antagonist in this film, or this book, sorry. So a lot of people think that he is the villain of this film. And so that's of course up in the air because Wally isn't actually revealed to be Mr. Wood in the book. A lot of people just speculate. Of course, there are some flaws, like how did Mr. Wood come back? But they could very well be the same person. You just really don't know. In the box with Wally, there are instructions on how to put Slappy to sleep. Slappy begs to be spared, and Slappy decides to do 3 nice things in order to be safe. So he's given to this girl named Georgia Boonshoft, who performs with him. Slappy tries to do the deeds, but they keep being undone. Georgia performs for Maggie Kramer, which is possibly Amy Kramer's cousin, because if the girl in Slappy 2, her name is Amy Kramer. So in Night of the Living Dummy 2, it's revealed her last name is Kramer, and then you see a girl with the same last name, Kramer, in Slappy's Nightmare. So they could possibly be cousins, which would link the universes together and prove that they are all in the same universe. In Georgia's school, Slappy battles Wally. And fed up with them both, Georgia throws him into a meat compactor, and Slappy wakes up, and he realizes that he's been dreaming, and this whole thing has been a nightmare. However, he then sees Jimmy, who pulls out Wally's crate and says that dreams do come true. So that's kind of where it's left, just left in the air. This is the first time we actually see a villain as the main character in the book, with Slappy actually being the main character in a sense, even though he's still a villain. And so that would leave a lot of people concerned with Slappy, like, oh no, did he put him to sleep? But as we've known before, you can put Slappy to sleep, and then if you just read the same spell, he'll come right back to life. So it's not too big of a deal if all he did was put him to sleep. Now, we have a pretty big span, and then we've got Revenge of the Living Dummy, which is that book right there. Revenge of the Living Dummy. And somehow, Slappy is back, and this girl named Brittany Crosby, her cousin, Ethan, comes to visit. And he brings Slappy. So how does he have Slappy? I don't really know. I wouldn't like to think that Jimmy would give him Slappy due to the fact that Jimmy knows he's evil. It wouldn't really make any sense for him to just give the doll away. So I don't really know what happened. I don't really have any speculations, but somehow Ethan has ended up with this dummy. I think that's the most important thing to realize, and that's the only thing that really we need to know in order to understand this story. So either Jimmy puts Slappy to sleep and gives him to Ethan, which like I said wouldn't make sense, or Ethan finds him some other way. Slappy causes a lot of trouble at the Crosby house, needless to say. Slappy is buried in a graveyard after Brittany battles him. But in the end, he calls out to her, revealing that he is still alive. And after this, Brittany is invited to Horrorland, because as most of you know, the Horrorland was a big series that was actually in the same universe. We know that it was in the same universe. All the characters meet up each other in this one monumental battle with this evil man known as the Menace, who has employed all the other villains, including Slappy, to work for him. So when she gets to Horrorland, she realizes that her parents are gone, and she sees her father's camera, and all that's there is a picture of Slappy, which is, I think, a really, really eerie. I think that's actually pretty creepy, and well done for R.L. Stine. And you see Slappy again in the Goosebumps Horrorland book, Streets for Panic Park. And in Streets of Panic Park, it is this book right here, number 12. And in Streets of Panic Park, it's not necessarily a Slappy book, but it does play a big part in his history. Slappy is revealed to be working for the Menace, like I said, the ultimate villain. He has employed all of these villains to basically lure these children to Horrorland and then eventually to his theme park in the Streets of Panic Park. Now, his job, along with the other villains, is to scare the kids out of Horrorland and invite them to Panic Park, like I said. But after a turn of events, Slappy and the other villains decide that they want to change sides and help the kids escape because they're tired of the Menace controlling them. So the villains, along with Slappy, they help the kids escape and then they just leave. But in the end, it's revealed that Lizzie, the main character of the series, is going home, and she opens her suitcase and she finds Slappy, the ventriloquist dummy, inside her suitcase, going to enslave her. So thus that leaves a lot of things in the air. And we don't see him again until later on in the Slappy Horrorland series, where it is where it is Slappy New Year. So we see him again in book 18 of Horrorland, Slappy New Year. Now, in this book, we don't really know what happens because Slappy is once again at Horrorland and he is